Hello and good afternoon and welcome to Virtual Coffee with me, Cheryl Leong at the Growth Hub. This was meant to be at 10 o'clock, but we had a few gremlins take over Zoom, and then it took the gremlins a while to leave the building, so we're a little bit behind, and I had a whole lot of client meetings and so on. So this is a makeup for our virtual coffee. I have a very cold coffee now, but we're going to focus on the good because we had some really good calls with some incoming clients. I love having these calls because one of the things that you can almost see when you're having these calls with our clients and we're about to find them their champion, their number one champion, is that this sense of relief. They're like, I have so much to do, it takes up so much of my time, I really just need someone to help. And there's that excitement from us because we know we can provide a huge amount of value and take off all this stuff off their plates. But I digress. The thing I do want to share about in today's outsourcing Q&A, which is are going to be around the questions and challenges that a lot of business owners have faced with starting out on their outsourcing journey. And it's something that I can speak to very, very well because it's something that I've gone through myself as well. But before we go on to that, let's check in on some admin-y things, making sure that everyone is on the same page, that I've got you guys. Any comments that you have, please leave them in the comment section below. I'm going to share this as well across. Here we go. Again, sorry for the delay, gremlins attacked us. So a few things I want to talk about was basically what I've seen the three most common mistakes that business owners make when starting out on their outsourcing journey. And I think the fact that you're thinking about outsourcing as a solution, obviously I'm biased, but I think that's a great thing. But it's also I have found in my journey of outsourcing for many years now, I'd say close to almost 8 years, that I've learnt a lot through that process. And the number one thing that I'd say that a lot of business owners, I won't talk about outsourcing is great or not, it's more so, okay, you've decided you want to outsource, how can I do it without stuffing up, and how can I do it to find my superstar VA who is the one, or build a team of virtual assistants or a remote team, whatever that might be. So the number one thing I find that business owners make that is a mistake is to feel that a VA is one person that can do everything in their business. I know it sounds silly, but it's not uncommon that, with business owners, we have so much to do and we wear all the hats. And we think to a certain extent that someone else can also wear the hats. It might be they can do social media, they can do video editing, they can respond to client inquiries, they can create CRM funnels. It's strategizing on like anything and everything that you can think of. Like, I can basically lift it up and plonk it on someone's lap, which often is not the case, because just like everyone else, we all have individual strengths and weaknesses in what it is that we do. And so what we often will sit down with someone about is being really clear about what are the tasks that you need someone to help you with in your business, and almost group them up into specific types of skill sets. So someone who's fantastic, for example, at research may not be necessarily the same person that does your social media. And that person that does your social media as well, who will probably be maybe fairly good with some design. They might be okay with some video editing, some basic video editing. Also knowing that it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the ones necessarily strategizing. So what we've found in particular is that most virtual assistants like work really well if you have a process and a system in place of what you want to do. And if it's something that's continually repeatable, that's something that that you can quality control to a certain extent, those are the types of tasks and functions that are fantastic for sort of a general VA position. And even with an executive assistant, like think about what it is that you want this person to do for a long term. And I'll say the word, be reasonable to a certain extent as to how much you want them to be able to do and achieve. And to be able to ask yourself as well, like, is this a role that realistically one person can do well? Or am I better off if there's a function that is a marketing function to either have someone else in the team to do it, another team member, or is this something that I feel like I should then outsource to a marketing company, a digital marketing company, or so on? So that's the number one thing. VAs are not Jack or Janes of all trades. Really, you need to have a look at all your tasks and then be able to then bucket them up into someone who is really good at administration. Like you can get someone that's helpful with social media, but do you really think they're going to be fantastic with CRMs? If it's administrative CRM, yes. If you want them to actually create your CRM, which is likely not so much, it's likely not going to be the case because that's a very technical skill. So number one, they're not Jack and Janes of all trades. Number two of common mistakes that business owners make when starting on their outsourcing journey is going for the cheapest price and thinking that for $5 an hour or whatever it might be, that you're going to have someone who's going to do all that other stuff that the Jack and Jane of all trades is going to do. Number one, and depending on where price is also a reflection of the type of skill and value that you'll get from someone. I've done it before. Admittedly, very, very early in my days of outsourcing, I had engaged someone who had just started out on a freelancing website. The price was extremely cheap. Her profile looked okay, but admittedly, it costed me more than it was worth because the response time wasn't great. That language was a barrier as well. There was a lot of time explaining tasks and explaining it again and again, and so and then eventually she did sort of disappear because it got too overwhelming for her as well. But I'd already paid up front, and so I know that quite a few people have heard these sort of horror stories. And it does happen, but I'm going to explain in a little bit why it happens and how to avoid it, because the things that we've learned from recruiting and screening and managing hundreds of virtual assistants as well. So going for the cheapest price doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a great outcome for you. Not forgetting as well, particularly if you're using sort of freelancing websites, often like freelancers, just like anyone who's a contractor, say for example, in Australia, if you're a contractor, you're not getting covered with health insurance or superannuation or any of the other perks, and you'll find that that many people, if you're not paying them enough, how are they going to be able to prop up the rest of the money to fund their sort of daily lives? Is they're going to probably have to look for other jobs, right? So they're spreading themselves too thin. And what happens when they spread themselves too thin? Just like anyone else, we don't really deliver on what it is that we want to. So going for the cheapest price VA, have a bit of a think about that as well. At the end of the day, what we want to be achieving is results. And the question is, what are you willing to pay to get results as well? Is not going to be a dollar amount. All right, number 3 of the common mistakes that business owners make when starting on their outsourcing journey. And I hear this very often, particularly businesses that are just starting out. They say, I only need them for 1 or 2 hours in a day, but I need them pretty much any time that I need them throughout the day. So it's basically expecting that someone's going to be maybe tracking like every 5-10 minute block of your day that then adds up to maybe an hour or 2. That says to me to either one, that you're either not busy enough in your business or you're not generating enough income at that point, or 2, that you're probably underestimating the number of things that you can delegate to someone else. And more often than not, particularly on where you are in the stage of your business, particularly if it's at the start of your business, that's probably the point where you more than likely need to focus on a bit more lead generation and marketing and sales so that you can convert into business. And then in the meantime, then be able to have someone else. If you are willing to invest some time in someone at the start of your business to start to systemize and scale, I think that's a fantastic thing to do. But it's without a doubt, if you're starting up in business, that you should be spending a significant amount of time marketing. So once you've got your marketing in place, you're getting a decent level of leads through the door and consistent income. It's really where outsourcing and building a remote team brings a huge amount of benefit. But then you need to look at then how much, in my business can I be able to lift off and delegate to someone else. And if you don't have at least, I'd say, half a day every day of work for someone, then I would dare say again, you need to dive a little bit further, because I suspect you're probably doing a little bit too much on your own as well. And that's why we've got this tool called the task shredder, which literally breaks up in each of the business functions in the business, the types of tasks that a VA can help you with, understanding some of the things that you're doing, and really weighing up, what are the things that are high level and low level, not level, value, high value and low value that you are currently doing, and which of the sort of low value tasks that you can delegate to someone. So there's a little bit of assessment there, and we addressed this on another session called the task shredder. So those are the 3 common mistakes. And what I find is when it's either one of them or a combination or all 3 of them, the journey and the experience for both the business owner and the VA actually becomes not a particularly enjoyable one. And it ends up being more work for the business owner, because you're taking on still a lot of work, because they're not working a lot of hours. The VA is probably not skilled to the extent that you're looking for, because you've purchased someone that's for very cheap, I guess. And the third thing is, right, they've got to a point where they're so overwhelmed because you're basically lumping everything that you want onto them. And particularly when you don't have any systems or process or templates in place, it's really like overwhelmed, like it's not particularly great for anyone. So I've gone through all these, and I have stumbled and I've failed, But the main thing was that what I've learned from each of these mistakes that I made was that I could improve on it and get better at what I was doing in terms of our recruitment, in terms of screening someone, and how to manage them long term so that they stay with you and become an invaluable part of your team. So I'm going to address that in another session, what we've learned for recruiting, screening, and managing virtual assistants. And I'd really like to hear from you because we've only got half an hour. It's a really short virtual coffee. If you've, what your experience has been with outsourcing, whether it's been a positive one, whether it has had its challenges, have you experienced anything that I've spoken about? Have you made any of those mistakes that I've spoken about as well, or other mistakes? And just share, what ideally you feel, if you've had these experiences, what you think you could have done, you could do differently next time round, or just being able to identify what went wrong the first time. And again, like anything else, it's always an experience and a knowledge building exercise. We take that on to improve it the next time. So I'll see you next week when the gremlins aren't around to hijack virtual coffee again. Have an amazing rest of the day, and I'll see you all again soon. Focus on the good. Take care. Keep thriving. Bye-bye.